All right, good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock, so I am going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. So I am Jamie Shoplin. For those of you who don't know, I am a new chair to CCAC, our Special Education Citizens Advisory Committee for this school year, 24-25. So I'm super excited to be here to kick off our very first public meeting for this school year, and it is in service to our mission. So CCAC works together to put children first. The committee focuses on open and honest communication, improving effectiveness and accountability, identifying systemic issues, and advocating for appropriate resources. In collaboration with Frederick County Public Schools leadership of special education, parents, FCPS staff, and community members, all well represented here tonight. The committee strives to facilitate positive changes in the delivery of special education services and the success and achievements of students with disabilities. So that is our mission. That is what we are all here for. So before we move into the meat of our agenda this evening, I do want to take a moment of personal privilege and just acknowledge all of the folks who served as chairs and co-chairs and other leadership positions as part of CCAC, and recognize that I'm only building on a lot of the great foundation that those prior leaders have laid. So I want to thank them and acknowledge them for all of their service, and I'm excited to be serving as your chair this school year. A couple of updates, chair updates. I will share with you that Dr. Dyson will be attending our next meeting on October 28th. I also had an opportunity to connect with Senator Lewis Young, rather. I knew her when she was a delegate, that has not clicked in my brain fully, but I connected with her on the special education work group. She is a member of that work group. I also connected with Brooke Schmidt, who is our very own CSAC representative, just to get some information flowing between all of these entities so that we can understand what's happening at the state level and take that into consideration as we conduct our business here as members of CCAC locally. I also want to share an update around the vice chair vacancy. So we did have somebody come forward who will be nominated later in our agenda under new business. So we have solved that vacancy, and also want to just put in a friendly reminder that we are striving to follow Robert's Rules of Order here so that everybody has an equal opportunity to participate in the business that comes before the committee. You do have a little cheat sheet on the back of your name card if you're not sure what Robert's Rules of Order is. We will have some motions coming before the committee this evening where we will ask you to vote on certain items that are on our agenda. So with that, I will acknowledge and welcome and affirm the new members that are joining us this school year. You can see we have Amy Kilpatrick, Ashley Barnett, Audrey Perez, Dalvin Osario, Janelle Lynn, Joanna Bernhardt, Melissa Bennett, Merritt, and Makarola. That's great. Okay. Radula Vasudevan. I may not have said that right. Nashota Seitz, Sarah Schohofer, and Zoe Howat. So these are the new members that are here with us this evening. So welcome to those of you who are at your very first public meeting as a member of CCAC. And then we'll move into approving the minutes. So our last meeting was held on May 20th, 2024. Everyone received a copy of those minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? Any amendments to the amendments? If there are no, there is Laura.
I had actually placed comments in the meeting minutes from May 20th, recommending what I had objected to.
Do you want to just share the point of clarification that you're looking for in the minutes so that everybody understands that context and we can vote to approve as amended?
If it'll open.
So one point of clarification, Laura read aloud, quoting an email that was shared concerning RVP. And then there was, that was in regards to an email response from a Board of Education officer. So clarifying that point in the May minutes. Any objections to that clarification? If none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the May 20th, 24 amendments as, minutes as amended. Would anybody like to move to approve? Sarah, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the May minutes with the edit as proposed by Laura on the Google Sheet.
Also, Kara Phillips had also put a comment in there for a point of clarification in which she made a note that she had an idea to put in there, but she no longer wishes to put the idea in and would like to delete that section.
Okay, so we have 2 amendments to the minutes as they were shared out.
I also recall, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I also recall that Dawn Fishburne's had the same situation for which she had highlighted a piece where she was going to add more information, and I do not believe that that has taken place yet. I do not know how which the chair wants to go with that.
I would say if it's not in there and no one can recall what needs to be added, or we just move on and approve the minutes with the 2 amendments. You want to restate your motion?
Sure. I make a motion to approve the May minutes with the 2 edits, removing Kara Phillips asked for clarification and a statement following that, and adding in Laura's note about reading aloud the email and the text from the email that was sent to the Board of Ed and the response.
Okay. All those in favor? Second? So seconded by Jen Wheat for the minutes. And then all those in favor? Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? One? One abstention, Laura?
2.
2 abstentions. So Patty and Kara abstained from the. All right, moving on. So next on our agenda, we will hear from our Board of Education liaison, David Bass.
Definitely go, was there any public comment?
Public comment is at the end of our agenda.
Okay.
They are not providing public comment, they are here to observe this evening.
Excellent, welcome. Welcome to new members and existing members. Good to see a full room. I'm David Bass, the Board of Ed liaison to CPAC. I want to welcome each of you. One item that the board discussed at our previous meeting that there might be some interest in folks thinking about is policies around cell phones, on whether we want to be stricter on cell phones and really adopt a countywide policy on cell phones. The board heard testimony from a middle school teacher, high school teacher, a school resource officer, and certainly there was a good amount of feedback from our student member who had polled students. I'd say we still have to hear a lot more, I'd say, from parents, but I think generally the feedback has been that there's real movement that a stricter policy against cell phones would really allow for greater focus for students, probably greater safety as well. And the board is likely to draft a policy on this. Right now there's a superintendent regulation that is what's being followed at the elementary, middle, and high schools. And part of why I bring it up, one, I thought we had a good discussion about it, but two, it was just interesting around some of the concern around a very, very strict policy was whether there are students with a variety of learning needs where a little bit of music, or I guess music would be the best example, allows them to focus more. And so that was part of the discussion. And so want to put it out there that CCAC may want to look at this. And certainly, it's likely the board, I'd say in the next couple months, will be drafting a policy. So I want to put that on everyone's radar. I think second thing I want to put on everyone's radar is that in October, October is typically the time that the superintendent is asking board members for input into budget. That's really when our budget discussions at the board level start. And, you know, it's my last few months on the Board of Ed. I'd be really excited to advocate for funding priorities of CCAC. And so I think that, you know, in these next few weeks, Jamie, I think I'll look for you to see if there's particular areas that CCAC wants additional emphasis on funding for next fiscal year.
Okay.
I think final thing would just be, I had an excellent coffee meeting with Jamie shortly after, a few weeks ago. So yeah, I guess shortly after you became chair. And yeah, I'm really excited about the work that CCAC is going to be doing. And yeah, part of the discussion was on whether there's relevant legislation in particular areas, including virtual schooling, and certainly on my mind is also whether there's any relevant legislation on cameras in classrooms. So yeah, that's another thing that's on my radar. That's my report. Does anyone have questions?
Actually, I have a question. Do you know when they would decide, or when the new rep for CCAC is chosen?
Well, it sort of helps that there's no meeting in December, because December will be when board members give their requests to the president of the board, and then it would probably be decided end of December so that everyone can be in place on their committees for January.
Yeah, a prior recommendation was for CCAC to provide some sort of insight or be part of that selection process. I don't know if the Board of Education, how the Board of Education feels about that, or if there is an opportunity for us to be part of that process.
The only reason, in my opinion, that it might not work in this particular year is that there will be 3 new members. And so there could be there could be a great opportunity perhaps for someone who none of us have, served with or observed to be the liaison to CCAC. I would say, yeah, I think my opinion would be if you feel that a more veteran board member would be a better liaison, and that kind of input I feel like would be really helpful.
Kara, did you have a question?
It's actually the same.
Question? Okay.
So do you think that this cell phone policy will be put in place before the board members would Jen and Al?
I think it's going to take a couple months to develop, but yeah, it's interesting. We're in September, so a couple months, it's not, yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of interest in getting this right, which means some due diligence, but yeah, I think it will be this school year, and so is that, I think is that December, is that January? To me, it'll probably be discussed at the board again in the next couple months, that the policy committee is working on it. So most likely nothing would be passed, in my opinion, before January, but I feel like the policy committee will draft something in the next month or two.
Any other questions for our Board of Education liaison? Okay, great. Thank you for your suggestions. We noted them. We will follow up. Okay, so we will move on to hearing from our Department of Special Education directors, Katie and Troy. Over to you.
So tonight, we're going to talk about a couple of updates. The first one being RISE. And RISE is one of our new special education specialized programs. For those that follow the board meeting board meetings, we did an update on August 7th. And RISE, particularly as one, first of all, it's being housed this school year at Whittier Elementary and then Thurmont Middle School. Each classroom has a full-time special education teacher and then also has 3 SIAs. And then they have the coordinator going back and forth dedicated to those 2 programs right now. And so it's set up for students that are going to be accessing a diploma. It's also set up for students that likely have social communication concerns, executive functioning concerns. It's some of our students historically that may have exhausted their services and supports at their home school, and some of them have gone to Pyramid, but they would probably do better in this type of setting. This group is working more on perspective taking. So for instance, like, is this a little problem or is this a big problem? Analyzing those types of situations, learning multi-step, learning how in middle school I'm going to go to a lot of different classes and how do I keep up with all my work. Some of them may have been diagnosed with autism. And so right now we're beginning to start having conversations about elementary students getting started. Right at middle school, we still do not have a teacher. We were able to work it out with our teacher union to have those posted, and we didn't have anyone. Originally, we put it out, in July when the board moved forward with the budget, but we posted it again in August, and we didn't have a fortunate candidate come through. So we're still working on that classroom, but hopefully in the next few months, as far as elementary goes, we'll start filling up that classroom at elementary with students. And so we'll continue to give you guys updates about RISE. And I'm going to pass it over to Katie to talk about the audit.
Super excited about the audit. I'm going to have Rachel and Issa share about their new endeavor because that is directly tied to the audit. So if you guys want to talk just a little bit about your resource center right now. We can wait until you talk. Let the suspense build.
I was telling Jamie earlier that we are starting to organize it. We are going through a bunch of different stuff, but we have officially moved into our little center. Family Support Center is what we're going to be calling it. They're at Lincoln A, that's right across from Lincoln Elementary and the ESSL lab, right? So we are housed there along with the Success Program and Child Find. So all of our little people will be there, so we get to contact them as well. But yeah, I mean, we are really starting to set up and go through everything and see all the junk that we have and also the stuff that we forgot we had. So we will keep you guys updated, but it's been a journey. And thank you to Katie and Jen and Troy for the support and making that happen, and you guys as well for helping us with that. So
we were able to use grant funds in order to purchase the materials that we wanted in order to lift up the Family Resource Center, and so we will have like an open house when we're actually able to open it to the public. So we'll work with our public affairs department to really kind of highlight what this program or what this we're able to do and how we can support families. So really excited about it. It was one of the things that was called out in the audit. I'm super excited that we're actually able to lift it up and have a place for families to go to get support. Previously they could contact them, right? They could reach out, but to actually have a location, we're going to have some being able to have a lending library. We'll have a lot of brochures that'll be available for families, for resources. We'll have iPads there to help families if they need to access things, and the 2 wonderful Partners for Success will be there to help and support them. So really excited about this, that we're going to be able to provide it to the community and have this.
Sorry to steal your thunder, but it's really exciting. In addition, our department's been doing quite a bit of work on our inclusive framework, and recently met with our Equity and Organizational Development Office to do some combined work in that arena, in addition to our inclusive framework guide that we continue to develop and add resources to for staff within the district. We are also looking at interventions and professional learning for our staff, increasing paragraphology, visualizing, verbalizing, and doing a lot of those trainings at the start of the school year. Marilyn Zecker Math is another, multisensory math is another intervention that we're looking at. In addition to looking at our co-teaching within the district and providing training around co-teaching and what does that look like and what are the preferred models to be implemented within the classrooms. So a high-level overview of the audit would be to focus on those main criteria at this moment. We continue to look at our staffing work group. We're going to have another meeting in October to analyze all of the data from the different work group members on the different positions that they analyzed and determine where we want to move forward in the next steps because it is budget season, so we need to look and be fiscally responsible about what's feasible to recommend moving forward with that staffing work group. So a lot of great work went into that, analyzing different positions and how they might overlap or what certain features and functions they're serving within the district. Any questions in regards to our audit or our staffing work group?
For those who are new, can you give just a tiny background of what the audit is, just so they have a little bit more context?
Yeah, of course. So PCG is a private consulting firm that came in and reviewed through lots of different methods of data collection, different areas within special education programming that we could consider for improvement or areas of need. That information was then taken and provided into action steps. There's a public-facing action document that's on the website if you wanted to see the direct action steps. But then we cross-referenced those with the CCAC recommendations to ensure that we were moving in a similar direction and focusing our efforts together to make change in the district. So really it's just combined efforts of making change and moving special education to be the best.
I will say on the website as well is the actual executive summary for the audit, but also the full report. So like if you want to have some interesting reading, you can utilize either one of them. The executive summary, of course, just has the summary, but it does outline all 16 recommendations. It will provide for you where they gave us the accolades for the work that's already in place, but then also the recommendations that we've been focusing on. That is also linked in the document that the directors have shared, so you can kind of see our progress report.
I had a quick question, Katie. Would it be possible for you to share, and you could just go to the CCAC email and then we could push it out to everyone, the current crosswalks for the audit, the blueprint, and the CCAC recommendations as we're getting ready to prepare for our Board of Ed recommendations, and so we can share with new and old members kind of where things are standing at this time?
I believe I hyperlinked it on today's agenda.
I don't know. I don't know. I asked because I don't know where it is or how to find it, but I know you have it.
But we can definitely touch
Because
base.
there's 3 of them, right? 3 crosswalks.
So Laura, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, they're on the Google Drive in their own folder.
They're hyperlinked on there, it's just a little lower.
Yeah. So,
With-
so in the Google Drive, we have a folder for BOE recommendations for this school year. So all of this background is getting aggregated and pulled there together so that we can take all of that into consideration as we make our next set of recommendations to the Board of Education. So Laura has pulled a lot of that information together for us. We will send out an email and just highlight where that's located so that you all can get to it easily.
I didn't realize it was the current ones.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just had a clarifying question for Troy about the RISE program. I know previously it had been in partnership with Shepherd Pratt. Is that now exclusively an FCPS program, or is it still?
That's a good question. So we actually have 2 programs running simultaneously. We have FCPS RISE, which actually is a lesser restrictive placement than the Shepherd Pratt program. Shepherd Pratt is housed at Hillcrest, but because it's housed, because it is operated by Shepherd Pratt, that's actually considered a non-public program. And so we are going to work with those families this year to decide on next steps, if they're going to either transition into the FCPS RISE or what that partnership will look like after this year. So parents will be updated beginning probably winter time. We're working with them right now, but it is 2 different programs as of right now. The next portion, and I won't go deep in.
I'm sorry, we had a question from Joanna.
Just wanted clarification. So the website has it, but we're also going to have it on Google Drive?
Yes, we'll circulate all of this information. It's centralized in our Google Drive.
Thank you.
Back to you, Troy.
The next portion, and I won't go deep into it because Dorothy is going to give updates on her ad hoc, but we did meet this summer with the camera task force. That task force was unable to reach consensus based on a decision of if we would move forward with actually having a pilot in specialized programs, having cameras in those specialized program classes. And so that was a joint task between CCAC and the Office of Special Education, Dorothea will provide more updates on that. And then Katie, back to you.
Exciting news. Our staffing for this year is looking better than it historically has in regards to percent of fill rates. So we're really happy about that and all the efforts that our team and the school district has put into not only hiring, but then also looking at retention of teachers. So we're looking at 97% and higher for special education teachers. Speech and language pathologists, I think, are at 100%, and SEIAs, I believe, are at 98%, if my memory serves me correctly. So when you look at that in regards to numbers, we're looking at approximately 2 at the high school level, 4 at the middle school level, and 4 at the elementary school level that are vacant at this time. Lots of celebrations for the start of the school.
Yeah, great.
Do you do long-term subs in there when there aren't positions filled yet?
So that data isn't captured within that percentage, but sometimes there are long-term subs allocated when the position isn't filled.
Yeah, I don't mean the data, I meant the 2 that were in high school and the 4 and the
Oh.
4. Are they just put long-term subs in there? Do people go from central? Like, how do you cover those vacancies?
Sometimes the schools are working to cover those classrooms within the caseload ratios that they have, because when we allocated staffing, we try to allocate on the lower end of the caseload ratio to start the school year. So elementary, many of their caseloads were in the 10 to 12 range, and middle and high school were in the lower 15 to 17 range. So we had staffed them on the lower caseload range to begin with. But then we're also seeing that some of these vacancies are in our specialized programs. So in regards to those, many of them have long-term subs that are fulfilling that role in that position.
We also hire contracted teachers whenever there's some available, so we do work with agencies.
Stole my thunder.
Yeah.
Did that answer it for you, Patty?
That does count towards our fill rate, though. So we differentiate on we do break it down so that the public can see how many LTSs we have, how many contractors we have. That's typically, at this point, that's pretty much how we always stay at a 100% fill rate for SLPs, is we always have a handful of contractors that are working for FCPS full-time. It's also how many of the behavior analyst positions are taken care of as well.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Joanna.
Telling me what those
SLP, speech language pathologist.
LTS, long-term sub. Thank you.
Sorry. What other acronyms?
sounded cool.
Sorry.
What you were saying.
We should get a glossary of all the acronyms so that we can focus. There's a lot of them. Go ahead, Kara.
Were you guys finished? Or I don't want to ask a question you haven't gotten to yet. Okay, sorry. I had a question about inclusive practices. I know that was one of the, I think it came up last year as well, but originally the Blue Ribbon Task Force had recommended a consultant to come in to design a program. I know that you guys had hired Barbara Freelander as, I don't know what her role is. Could we just, not tonight, but in a future meeting, perhaps get more information on exactly what she's doing and how it's working and what that's looking like? Like, what is her plans or whatever for the upcoming years?
Absolutely. We could even have her come.
I was thinking that
as well.
Okay.
The meeting set up with Jamie coming up soon. One of the ideas to that meeting was to look at long-range planning for CCAP director comments.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right, Barbara Freelander, noted. Any other questions for Troy or Katie?
See, it's great to see such a large turnout. So thank you all for being so dedicated.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, shall we move into our partner for success? Anything else? Already stole your thunder.
We got nothing, Katie.
Yeah.
More great stuff to share.
Yes, we do.
I believe they.
Besides just,
Lisa, I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Just keeping me
I'm just so
honest.
sorry, I just want to make sure those other 2 bullets as we went down. The CCAC recommendations was a part of the full document, is that what, it's all linked together?
Can you guys tell, before you jump in, tell everyone what Partners for Success is,
Yeah.
for those who might not know?
Good call out, Kara, thank you.
yes. So, Partners for Success, we are a family and community support for special education. I like to describe it as we're kind of like community liaisons for special education. We kind of build that bridge between parents and community members and staff members as well in special education. We share resources with parents, with educators as well. We share information about special education. If we don't know it, then we'll go and find out and ask those who do know it. But we do a lot of events for families. We do webinars and workshops for things that families would like to know more of. We assist mainly to support families through the special education process. So if they are confused about maybe their child's IEP, or they need help kind of planning on what to say when they go into an IEP meeting, or just other things like that. We do make sure that we share that we're not advocates, but that we are here to support, to help them know how they can kind of advocate for themselves and their student.
Yeah, and we have, through the help of all of our directors and Jen and Public Affairs, we were able to do a video, and that's on our website as well, both English and Spanish, and we got one of our lovely parents to talk about her experience as well, so please check that out. It's on our website, and we
I will say
also...
that came from CCAC. I just want to call out, like last year, whenever we were talking with CCAC, and that was one of the suggestions that folks had, was like, could there be a video where they could actually hear from our Partners for Success as to what families can? So I want you to know that we are listening and we're acting on your ideas. Sometimes it takes us a little bit longer, but we hear you and we appreciate what you share. So sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. You're just fine. Yes, all of your ideas are heard and understood, and we think they're fabulous. And the video turned out great.
Yes.
I might say, even though we aren't actors, but I think we did pretty well. We also have a long list of resources on there. We have our newly updated flyers. And it
Our
looks-
newsletter
our
gets put up there.
newsletters, everything like that. So if you ever have a parent or a family member, or you guys are curious about what's happening out there with FCPS and special education, that's a good place to start.
They redesigned their website as well.
Absolutely, yes.
Make it very easy to navigate, to see like the calendar. There's a calendar of events where you click on the calendar and it takes you to the advertisement to make it easier for folks to be able to navigate and then to be able to find resources. So if you have ideas, like I said, they're very much really working to make it easier for families to get the help and support and to be able to have the resources that they need to support their child.
Go ahead. I thought she was next.
I was just gonna ask if you guys had like a one-pager or something that's like something teachers could give out in IEP meetings that we do have a stack of.
Yes, we have a bunch of them. It's also on our website, and we are also printing posters to put in your IEP rooms. I think 2 per school, English and Spanish. So you'll be seeing those pretty soon. But if you want us to drop them off to your school, just let us know, and we can make our way out there.
Is there a virtual, something?
It's on,
Yeah,
it's on our
it's-
line.
it's on
yeah.
the website
It's
as
on the
well.
website.
Within the IEP sessions that aren't in person? Because I do.
They should be sending them. I remember the last time they did send the Partners for Success cards, but I can double check with that to make sure it's the updated one.
Great. Zoe.
Do you have a way, like wordage-wise or best practice-wise, for staff to kind of like hand them out to parents so that we're not like, hey, you look like you need help?
You need a lot of help. Here you go. Contact them. Yeah, I mean, that's one way to do it, but also just we're giving it to everybody. Here it is. And it's not just for when you need help. We have a bunch of fun, free events. Like Isa will talk about everything that we've just done this month.
Yes.
But there's just a lot of events. So even though you don't want to be like, you need a lot of help, you don't know what the IEP process is, but here it is, sign up for this stuff, and you could build your community as well. So I would just hand it out to everybody that you work with.
Yes,
Yep.
especially because like the events we like to do, I think we like to focus on making it kind of like real world experiences and also just like family oriented so that they are things that they can enjoy as a family. So we've done, we did a VR event, which I got to watch Colin, and he was so fun.
Virtual reality.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what VR
virtual
is, yeah.
reality.
Shocker, my kid loved it.
And then we did a caregiver event, which Dorothea and Brooke participated, and it was wonderful to spoil our caregivers. We do, let's see, we've done flips, the gymnastic. We did an open gym on Friday. That was fun. That Rachel was jumping all over the place with them as well.
I have a new respect for teachers and people within special education because they wore me out in just that hour. It is insane how fast they can run. I was not ready for the gym after like 2 days after that, so it was really fun.
Yes, events are kind of like your gateway,
Absolutely.
and then they're like, oh, there's other parents, and then maybe they'll go to the support group, and then they're like, oh, at the support, they're more about be like, I need some help.
Yes, that's when they. That's
kind of like
when
a
they
gateway
build.
in.
Yeah, it's all about building trust, and that's what we really like to do. And just like Kara said, they come out and they see that we're interacting with them, we're interacting with their kids. We're just normal people that you can call or email, or even just stop in now that we have a center to just chat about really anything that's going on. We invite community members, teachers to reach out, not just parents.
And one of our other goals that we are continuing on is also including our Hispanic population here in FCPS. And this Thursday, I have put together a special education bilingual family night. It's going to be an hour long. It's a very small, but I have provided a guided question sheets for parents because a lot of the time they don't actually know what questions they do have or questions that they can ask. And so just simple questions that might trigger other questions that they can ask. And then I will just be answering any simple questions or kind of pointing to them a direction where they can get those answers. And then I'll have a lot of resources as well that are going to be there participating and offering them resources. So that'll be this Thursday. It is geared toward our Hispanic families, but everybody is invited. So I can share that flyer in the chat, and then if you guys want to share that out more, I would love to see you all on Thursday.
We can push that. Do you partner with Centro Hispano de Frederick at all, or push information out through
Yes,
that?
yes.
Okay.
And also, it just kind of happened that way. We also are partnering with CCAC and Pediatric Movement Center for our picky eating workshop. That's at Lincoln A. I think that one's more geared towards our little ones who are going to be, mealtime at school, how to pack a lunch for your picky eaters. So again, last time we did it, I even learned some things about myself. I didn't realize I was such a picky eater. So I'm excited what else I'm going to learn about myself. But if you want anything, if you want a workshop, if you want a training, we'll be working with Mary Kate in transition and I think service coordination and a few other places in the park to do a DDA workshop here soon. If you have any other ideas, fun family events, anything like that, we have a grant that we love to spend. Please let us know. We'd love to partner and get to know the rest of you guys.
Will you have an upcoming A Mother's Rest open house retreat? A Mother's Rest?
Absolutely, sure. We can talk about it for sure, yeah.
Okay.
We're open.
Also, this Thursday, part of the PMC is we give them all the information from FCPS Nutrition about like what the meal options are, what happens in the lunch line. So they're also going to be talking about how to help your kid understand the lunch line, how to navigate the lunch line, not just what you can do on your end for people who take advantage of school lunch, and how to make sure their kids know what they can do.
And they are on the same night. And that's just
Like I
how it worked
said,
out, but we are
It's the last.
dividing and conquering.
Yes, dividing and conquering is what we do best. I think Merritt, you
Merritt?
had a question?
Oh, yeah. Would you guys be open to doing like an event to teach parents, grandparents, family members how to use the AAC devices for the children that don't?
Yeah.
There's so many different, I mean, I'm not expecting you guys to know every single different device.
Don't. But we know people who do.
Right.
So we
And
coordinate with
so
them.
maybe that would
Absolutely.
give people an opportunity,
Absolutely, that's
particularly in
great.
the extended family.
Yes, good idea, yes. I would like to talk to you more about that if you would. Awesome.
Zoe.
My suggestion for that, just to piggyback off of that, is to either have like separate nights for each program or like break the programs apart because
For what she was,
Or-
yes, it's overwhelming, isn't it?
because like when you're in a meeting and they're like, this is LAMP, this is touch chat, this is, you get like a little like section of each and you don't actually get to like play with it and like learn it. So when I'm in like trainings for it, I'm like, okay, I saw 5 minutes of touch chat. Okay, I saw 5 minutes of LAMP. Okay, I saw, but until you're like, it's more helpful to do like one that you're like, obviously, if you have a child, you have one specific
Right.
with.
The team did that a couple of years ago, but I think what they did well too is they broke it into, instead of trying to teach them like what a teacher might need to use, they taught them more of like what's helpful at home, because it's, let's be honest, at home the parents are not going to use all of that. So break it into the like, what's gonna be useful here, and then enough to know what they're using in school. type of
I
things,
do
right?
want to say they have virtual ones coming up here in October. I'm in contact with Ashley Evans pretty frequently. I can send that in the chat as well, but it is virtual. But I do see a point in having it again in person to actually have those iPads or whatever that they have in front of you to do it. So we will reach out to them and coordinate something here in the future. But Merritt, please reach out. I want to hear some more suggestions.
All right. Joanna. She's saying, which is a great idea, I'm thinking about grandparents who don't speak English, and that could be only languages. So I don't know how that would go.
Figure it out.
We will. Anything else for our Partners for Success? All right, so we will move into our subcommittee reports. So the first one up is our budget subcommittee. So Jen and Tara.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to everybody who's new. I'm going to update you on what's left of the grant budget from our last year, which will end on September 30th. So we are down to the wire of spending that last grant. And then we have not moved into discussing the new grant until you guys will meet on your subcommittees and you'll come up with ideas and ways to spend money, and then we'll do an amendment once all that is complete. We were working with FCPS to get Chuck Flahart paid because there was some confusion over the W-9s and getting him paid from the resource fair. So we are working towards that. It seems like that is thankfully going to go into play. We had the $350 from Best Buddies, which was originally slated for Tuscarora, was not going to be used by them. And then we were looking into Catoctin, and they did not. It's not going to be used there either. So there was $350 that was not going to be used for Best Buddies. So we were able to work that into other categories of the budget. So we purchased some activity books for inclusion, and we ordered some more general special education books, rights law, how to, IEP process, those types of things, plus executive function, because we know that covers multiple disabilities rather than just one. There was a couple in there I had put on the list based off, I do language-based learning differences, so there was that there. But so we have to wait to see from Joanna O'Toole, our FCPS person, to let us know how much of each is going to be bought. And so, of course, once we know, we'll let you know what is bought. And then we'll keep those for activities, events, raffle off, door prizes, those types of things, and use that money that way. After Chuck and moving that money, we have $220.13 remaining in our professional services. We didn't have another event to be able to spend that money. We can pull from there. $40.34 can be used for printing, and then that would leave $179.79 for professional services. Or we tried to work with Joanna and see if we can use all of that in printing. We just needed to get with communications committee, which I don't think Meg is here tonight.
I spoke with Jessica in charge of the grants this afternoon, probably after you got to look at it, because she called me around 5. We can order more rack cards and more posters with that money, no problem.
That's what she did say in there. We could use it printing.
Yep, totally be able to use.
So we can work with communications, we can work with the events committee, and we can make purchases based off of what's necessary for the, but it has to be done. Today's the what?
We're gonna order them
23rd.
tomorrow.
So
We're gonna order them tomorrow.
we have 7 days to make sure we got everything put into place to close out this grant year.
I signed off on
I have a
the,
question.
Say it
Question
again?
signed off on Chuck's framework.
Oh, awesome,
Oh,
thank
good.
you.
Thank you for doing that. I have a question from Laura.
Yes, Laura.
$40 and how many cents for printing, please?
34 cents.
Thank you so much.
But it sounds like we will wrap probably the whole $220.13 into printing for communications and cards and that kind of thing.
Shouldn't be a problem, is we can go over each category by 10%. I don't know, I haven't done the math, but like however it's bucketed, I think there was a 10%.
We're that, yeah, I mean, I would
It should be okay.
appreciate that if we knew we wanted a certain speaker and we were over a low percent. We're just trying to make sure we're using up the rest of our money. Otherwise, we would just have to use it or lose it. So then,
So, thank you, Jen and Tara, for everything that you have endured to understand what is happening with the grant process.
I understand is a very, very.
And we're now getting looped into some meetings around this, right? I don't know if you want to
October 1st.
share.
Oh, yeah, oh, yes, I'm sorry. So we will meet with our grant coordinators, is it once a month? It's not once a month. is it?
Once a quarter, October
Once a
1st
quarter.
is our first meeting.
Just to make sure we're on track. They really don't like amendments. We always do one amendment, and that's what we try to keep it to, is one amendment. So that's why these meetings take place, so that we can make sure we have everybody in the right line item. And learning from the budget. And we can't just move it willy-nilly around either.
And thank you, Dr. Bingman, for your help with this process as well. All right, anything else from the budget committee?
Not for
Is that
me.
a wrap? Okay. Let's move on to, we have membership. So we know we have 12 members, new members, many of whom are here tonight, but is there anyone from the membership committee that would like to share an update on, or anybody?
We had one resignation. We had the resignation.
Yeah, the chair of the membership committee, Marlena, resigned.
So there's a resignation today.
Oh, there is, okay.
Yeah.
I did not see that yet.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I believe it came to you, me, and Laura.
Okay. Okay, so we'll have a vacancy that we need to fill, but you wanted to share, or anybody that was on the membership committee?
That it needs a new chair.
It needs a new chair, okay. All right. Yes.
Are you able to share what category of person that vacancy is?
Yeah, so I don't have that information, but when we meet as a committee, we are specifically looking if there's one parent, 2 community members, 1 staff, whatever it is, they let us know ahead of time. And so when we go back to review applications, we look at specifically those areas. Because sometimes we have a lot of applicants for community and we just don't have an opening. So we may get 50 applicants total, but then only, 10 are for between parent and staff. So we pull only from those areas, but I don't know the exact numbers. I don't know, Dawn, if you know at this point for the openings.
And our bylaws do guide the representation, parent, student, or community member, and staff. So that's what we're working towards when we fill any vacancies. Kara?
Sorry, I was a few minutes late too. Did we have new members tonight yet?
All right. So for membership, that is, I think, what is most relevant to share with the committee at this point, unless anybody else has anything else. Okay. All right. Moving on to communications subcommittee. So Megan, who had been chairing our communication subcommittee, is not here tonight. She did send in a summary of what she's been up to. I will make sure, between Laura and I will make sure that that gets shared out with the full committee. I know that she was working on getting all of the members posted, the names posted on our website, so that there's transparency and visibility into who the members of CCAC are. She was also working to manage some housekeeping things around how we store our passwords and different things like that. So I think you know, as we kind of move ahead. Oh, you've got it up here, thank you.
It's really tiny though, sorry.
Yeah, so the member page getting updated, she did update the BOE candidates page out there to just focus that in on the candidates that moved beyond the primary election. She also created a Reddit account for CCAC, so we'll make sure that if you are on Reddit, that you have an understanding of what that handle is. And then we're also going to be, now that we understand the funding available, get another round of posters printed and into more of our schools. So it looks like that is the latest update from communications. Jake.
Did Meg put the Reddit handle on there? I'd like to.
She didn't, she's just planned to create a Reddit account.
Okay, oh, plan to create, so it is not yet created. All right. Moving on to our Resource Fair and Events Subcommittee. Tara.
Well, a couple items. Jamie and I met with the members of the Transitioning Youth Council over the summer. They are interested in combining the Transitioning Youth Fair and the Resource Fair into one large event, so our families aren't trying to go to multiple events, and to provide educational opportunities about transition planning to parents when their children are younger, because we're finding a lot of parents are like in the upper high school ages and just starting to plan, and that's a stressful time to try to do everything in this very small window. It was a really great meeting. I think a lot of great ideas came out of it. That said, I would love to make a motion for our committee to support moving forward with planning our resource fair with the Transitioning Youth Council, combining the two fairs. Just gives us another new partner. I'd like to make a motion that we move forward planning together and doing the resource fair together this spring. I'd also like to make a motion that we tentatively plan to hold it on March 28th at Rock Creek School. I'm in contact with the administration at Rock Creek School to get those dates approved so we can then use the facilities format.
We have to do those separately, sorry.
Yes,
They're doing
that's
separately?
3 different motions.
Oh,
So first, let's address the motion to partner with the Transition Youth Council to expand our reach and
to one fair.
and have one fair. So that is the motion. Discussion.
It needs to be
Okay,
seconded
so you got a
first.
second, and then
Hold on.
Stacy seconded.
Discussion?
So
we
well,
had
I'm
the
asking,
second
is there
first.
discussion?
Yeah, there's discussion.
Yes, so.
And I haven't been to one in a while, but previously they've done a lot of breakouts, and then the Diversity Council has some very specific wants and needs in terms of some of their community. I just, did some of that come up in terms of like how we would divide and conquer and separate them and?
Yes, they essentially.
A lot of teaching breakouts, which are great. I just want to make sure that we're going to have the time and to do it.
Yeah, so we talked about that and thought it would diversify the offering, and they would, whatever space is available at Rock Creek that they could do these breakouts in, they would work with whatever space and do whatever topics. They were very flexible to how that could all be worked out. We were pretty sure that we want to continue having this at Rock Creek for multiple reasons, so.
It was there instead of FCC. I know that's.
Right, yes.
It is pretty important for it, so.
Absolutely, yeah, so we talked through that, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. They were okay that it's not going to be in the school day.
Yes. Yes, we talked.
They were very much okay with
it. This year they wanted to change it back to FCC like they've done.
Right, and have the, because the students would attend, like that's a field trip sort of too.
Yeah.
If they're being.
That wasn't necessarily able to be very successful with all the ins and outs of everything, and that moving it to a combined fair with us would allow families to come and take advantage of everything all at one stop, instead of families trying to do 2 things in multiple days.
There were also, this was Anne and
in Perla.
They were both very complimentary of CCAC's fair and wanted to add to it, build on it, and partner. So we did talk about having a partnership agreement so that we could be very clear on roles and responsibilities in terms of what they would do versus what CCAC would do. And we would get that written up as an agreement, and that's what we wanted to bring
Sorry,
before
I
the
was-
committee.
Wanted to get it out my window.
So that, any other discussion before we move to a vote? Zoe?
I just have, what time is like the fair normally? Is it like an all?
It's an all-day event,
Like
10 to 2, 10 to 3,
I'm sorry?
10 to 2, 10 to 3.
Okay. I have a pre-K learning session that morning, but.
Did you mean March 28th?
I think
That's
it's
March
Friday.
29th.
Oh, I thought March 28th was the Saturday.
March 29th
Oh,
would be
okay.
a Saturday.
March 29th.
That makes more sense to me. I was like.
Sorry, it's been a week, and it's only Monday.
All right, any other discussion before we vote on the motion to partner with the Transition Youth Council? Hearing none. All those in favor? Raise them up so we can get the counts. Somebody counting? Am I counting? 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 20. 22 in favor.
John's up.
Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries.
Then the second motion will be to hold the event on the Saturday, March 29th at Rock Creek School. Did I get my?
Is there a
I must
second?
have looked at last year's March.
Oh, yeah.
When's spring break? Sorry.
Until April. It's just before spring break and before all other spring activities.
Yeah, we tried to take that into consideration, but it's a good question. Is there a motion, or a second for the motion? Okay, Stacy, second that. Laura? Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22.
That's a silly question. We know it's available, right?
I'm working with the school right now. They have a new administration and had a lot of new students, and every time I've called us, we'll get back to you, but I wanted an approval so I could move forward once I got the yes.
Excuse me, who seconded the motion? for-
Stacy.
Stacy.
Stacy seconded.
No, for the partnership. Stacy. Both for Stacy, thank you so much.
Yep. All right, any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
I guess the other update is that, yes, we have this event next Thursday that Issa and Rachel talked about with PMC, and if you have things that you would like us to look for in terms of events to bring in to present for our community and public, please let us know, as well as I've started a list in terms of presentations you'd like to see at the CCAC meeting in terms of educating us as a committee. And as I get in asks for that, I am making asks to fill our calendar. Currently, we have a request out to the ACT team, Ms. Corby Fowler and Lisa from the ARC already scheduled for later this year. And Dr. Dyson
I
is,
announced that.
okay, Dr. Dyson's scheduled to be here next month. So as we're moving forward, we're trying to fill the calendar up with things that are of most interest to all of you. So if there's something you'd like to see on either or both, please let us know.
The adaptive trick or treat.
Oh, yes, thank you. We've been invited to participate in the adaptive trick or treat with Parks and Rec at Rock Creek School on, I'm pulling up
The
there.
18th?
18th, thank you for the email I was talking. We're a tag team. On the 18th of October, that's a Friday. They do it from 3:30 to 5:30 in the Rock Creek Recreation Center, right there where we do our resource fair, right off the gym and in the gym, I believe. They asked for anyone participating to come with an item for the trick-or-treaters and to decorate a table like you would decorate a trunk. So it's like trunk or treat but inside. I think this would be an awesome thing to participate in, but I can't do it by myself. So I'd like to bring a motion forward that we do participate, but I would also need to get commitments from people willing to participate that day.
I got you. So we have a motion to participate in the adaptive trick or treat. There is no cost to CCAC for this other than whatever is needed to set up the booth or the trunk. Is there a second?
I second, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, Jake. That one, Laura?
It's really fun. I think last year I did Candyland themes, and we had a bunch of balloons and stuff like that. So we have a theme, a cool, unique theme. I think you guys should go for it. It'll be really fun.
Any other discussion? Angie, did you have a question or?
He answered it. We were just wondering the date. We had the time written down, but didn't have the date.
Oh, okay, yes, October 18th.
And Cass wants a date.
Okay. Awesome.
Contact
So we have a question from Amy.
Question, is it one table for CCAC or one table like per individual that?
One table for CCAC as an organization.
Yes. We can welcome others.
We can welcome others. We can partner with Cass and have a giant table.
Is it something that the events committee would decide, like, this theme and all that?
I'm assuming or whoever is willing to sign up to do that activity.
I would think so, yes. Okay, so Jake seconded. Is there any more discussion on the motion? Okay. Any opposed? Let's do that. Any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, so 22 in favor? Yes? Okay.
And who would like to tell me they're interested in volunteering that day? Raise your hand high.
Yeah, I'll be there.
What day is it again?
18th,
The
October
Friday, the
18th. 3:30 to 5:30. So you've got Karen.
Someone
you have
creative
Laura, you have
the other
Jake,
bartender.
Stacy,
I might be a little,
a few,
I have PT.
and Dorothea.
Plan, I'll show up.
I just play.
And then Cass, we should figure out how to partner with Cass. Okay, so we'll get this form submitted and sent off so that we can get that rolling.
Who's the contact with Parks and Rec?
Say it again?
Who's the contact with Parks and Rec?
Nicole Cantwell.
Was it what's her fee amount? We don't have an exact date. We don't have a location.
Just
but we
update
have a
on
date. The other thing to update about is we are looking now at scheduling the retreat for the spring, so we can get it on everyone's calendar, we can get the space reserved. And I'm looking at doing it in April before it gets really crazy with May. Hence doing Resource Fair, have a breather, do the retreat, close out our year. Does anybody have any feedback on that? No.
And for those who are not.
No alcohol at the retreat.
For those who aren't, the retreat is where we are coming together to focus on planning for the next year. It is an odd timing, but in our bylaws, we have to have it done by May, so.
And it's just one day for a few hours. It's not like a weekend getaway.
No.
We're looking at just a Saturday. We, due to space availability and schedules, we did a Friday night. But we're trying to plan well in advance so we can get a location and do it on a Saturday during the day.
Yes.
And we'll always try to have yummy food.
I was gonna say, they treat you well.
Yes, Dr. Beeman came in and it was super helpful. She updated us on the crosswalk and we were able to do a lot of team building there too. Anything else from the events committee? Okay, let's move on to Student Voices Subcommittee.
Do you mind if I just rope in this with like my student comments? Because I don't
Go
want
for it.
to introduce myself. Okay. Hi, guys. For those of you that do not know me or didn't get to say hi to me at our meet and greet in August, or first let me just say welcome, all my new faces. I'm so happy to see each and every one of you, and I'm looking forward to working with you guys this year. But for those of you that did not get to know me in August, I'm Jake Kamnikar. I'm a senior at Urbana. This is my second year on the committee, and they let me run an ad hoc last year, which was pretty cool. And I've always been very focused on the student voice, which is something that I think is really, really important in special education, giving students the opportunity to say what they want for themselves and their families directly. I think we're a group that's still pretty underrepresented in that respect. So what I kind of wanted to do is throw together a little committee of people who would work with me, more so in the school environment, working closely with staff and other students in programs that are already run in schools like Best Buddies, things like that, just to increase awareness and make students and their families aware of their rights, what they can talk about, things like that. And several of you indicated to me back in August that you would love to join Student Voices, and I love you for that. That's wonderful. Student Voices was kind of thrown together about halfway through last year, and it really got off the ground. I mean, we had ideas, but student participation wasn't all that consistent last year. And like I said back in August, it was a little hard to run a Student Voices committee when Janelle's here now. That makes all the difference. We've doubled our amount of active students, which is great. Go us. So I guess my question of the day for Jamie or whoever else can answer is, what does the process look like for people who want to join the subcommittee?
We have an update on all of the people that responded to our member survey and their interests. So we do have people interested in Student Voices. So we'll share that later on in the agenda.
Fantastic. Then, like I said, I'm looking forward to working with each and every one of you. I'm so excited to be back and doing CCAC stuff. I don't have any kind of agenda or updates for you all at this time, but once we get our subcommittee membership finalized, we can start rolling and get off the ground from there.
Excellent.
Anybody have any questions or anything for me?
Just delighted to have you back, Jake. Go ahead, Katie.
I just wanted to celebrate Jake. He came and spoke using his student voice perspective at our SIP Summit, which is for administrators and school chairs. And it got the best feedback, and people were so happy to hear from him. So thank you, Jake, for extending your student voice beyond CCAC and the board presentation, but also to our administrators.
Thank you.
If you ever need to present, you just bring Jake with you because he's a phenomenal. So whatever committee you're going to present with.
We love you.
What are you doing in November, Jake?
That's what I was gonna say. If you weren't on the committee last year and you didn't watch the board presentation, that's a great thing to go back and watch because Jake did an excellent job in sharing his story. I know that I shared it with administrators and everybody that I could share it with afterward because I think it's very powerful. So very much appreciate your voice.
Question, Joanna?
Yeah, I was just curious. It kind of answered my question, but just what exactly are you doing? What is it that you're doing?
Yeah, so Student Voices, we wanted to focus specifically on the school environment. Not to say we don't do any work in the community because we'd like to, but I really haven't, the subcommittee isn't really at a point yet where I can kind of expand it outside of the school environment because I think that's where students operate best. You know, they go to school every day, their IEPs and 504s impact them every day, the decisions that their 504 coordinators make, their IEP coordinators, the ones impacted by them, by those decisions are the students in their school environments. So what we kind of want to do, what our objective is as the student voice, is reach out to our generally educated peers, our students and staff working in programs like Best Buddies or other clubs that are inclusive for students with disabilities in our schools. And basically just kind of increase awareness, make those students aware and their families of what their rights are, how to kind of what Partners for Success kind of does, but for the students. How do you advocate for yourself in an IEP meeting? Or how do you set up a meeting with your 504 coordinator? And this was just, you know, some of the ideas that I've had growing up in SCPS special education. So I hope that our new faces on Student Voices and our second student, hopefully, on Student Voices can really help us get off the ground and help us out with all that kind of stuff.
Mine is slightly different in the sense like I'm not directly navigating through the special education system, but I'm more so navigating the process of having younger siblings
that are in the special education system and how you have to navigate that. Because like since I take care of my younger brother so much and I'm there for pickups or dropping him off for therapy and stuff like that, sort of navigating how to also work with your parents and other teachers, help your
Yes, that's awesome. Thank you for doing
Both
that.
of those perspectives on the committee. Yeah. You're gonna do great things, I can see it. All right, moving on to our ad hoc for cameras in special education self-contained classrooms. Dorothea.
Okay. So I wrote up a synopsis that I posted on the CCAC member chat, if you want, all the detail. But I'm just going to give you the highlights. The topic of pilot program in special ed contained classrooms has become kind of a difficult topic to address for the simple reason that the ad hoc committee, or CCAC, and by that, subsequently the ad hoc committee, didn't have a clear mission of what the camera pilot would look like. So we were kind of investigating the idea of cameras in the classroom. A lot of people came up with research on different states that have implemented cameras and what that means, but it doesn't tell us how we might do it in Maryland. So over the summer, I was also part of a task force with Troy and Katie that was put together by the administration of FCPS, and they had a mission, and their mission, called Charge, was to provide the Board of Education of Frederick County and the superintendent with recommendations related to the complexities and other relevant matters stemming from the use of cameras in designated FCPS specialized programs. The task force recommendations will guide the board and superintendent's decision as to whether or not to further pursue the pilot. So we had that versus a non-mission mission, and out of that, I'm just going to give you a couple of brief points that kind of tell the story. The task force over the summer had, functionally about 15, 16 members from the community, staff, at least one principal of a school, teachers, and the beginning polling of whether or not they thought it was a good idea was about a 50-50 split for and against the pilot program. At the end of 5 sessions, at the end of the summer, we had 25% for and 75% against doing a pilot program. And what it really came down to is the fact that our state is a collective bargaining state, and any idea that you propose, well, anything that's going to happen in the classroom is a workplace condition, and there are 3 unions that then have to get involved in a discussion. So we could not reach, the group could not reach consensus, and my feeling is that if CCAC is going to continue with an ad hoc committee for this topic, the idea of a pilot program for cameras has to turn into some kind of example plan, a plan to do something, and then you can give a recommendation about a plan. I think that there are some people who want to continue with pursuing this topic, and while I'm planning to step down, really after tonight, because I think I've run my course here, I'm available to work with them for a few months to make sure they really understand the confusing collection of information that we got about this topic. Because everybody has an opinion, and then everybody knows what a camera is, but nobody's really agreed on how they want it to run in a classroom in Frederick County. So, and that's just, it's a nebulous, amorphous conversation. So you have to, if it's just an idea. So my recommendation, I'm going with Troy and Katie to a presentation to the task force before the Board of Education in October. And CCAC could have their own comments about this at your annual November. But I'm going to suggest that if CCAC wants to pursue this with an ad hoc committee, which is great, it's a great idea, but request
a mission definition from the Board of Ed so that there's actually a thing that you're pursuing. And I would also say that there's basically two paths to do this. You either continue with the structure that you have now, where if the Board of Ed decides it's a good idea, they have to negotiate with all the unions, or you advocate for state legislation, because if state legislation is put into place for cameras in the classroom, then everybody is mandated to just figure out how to do it and come up with a plan. But as it stands now, CCAC investigated this great idea, and everybody thinks it's a great idea, except we mostly can't do it because no one can really see how to do it. Plan. And that's kind of where it's at. And that may be frustrating, but, and I do have a list, I can give some ideas of why people couldn't come to consensus, if you want me to read a couple of those, or do you want to ask a question first?
Can I just ask a question? So they took out, so if it was after the sessions, but it sounds like it was, majority was about the collective bargaining agreement. If we took that out of the, and this is just purely your.
Say that again, I'm sorry, what?
After the sessions, they decided, more people decided no. And it sounded like you said because of the collective bargaining agreement, right?
Well, there's actually many, I've got about a dozen reasons here, but that's a big one, because it makes it.
I want to clarify, it wasn't more people, it was, we never had 100% attendance for the individuals that were all invited. And that was the reason why we didn't reach consensus. The last meeting, there was more people in that particular meeting that said no to cameras. But it was never a clear, you weren't necessarily getting more people in mind.
And I guess
every group was different, every meeting had a different body.
And that you probably can't answer this question. If that was not an issue, the agreement with the teachers, this is just an opinion, did you feel that more people would agree to the cameras if the bargaining agreement was not an issue? And it's purely what you feel from the meetings you've attended.
Let me read you a couple of the reasons. Okay. Scope and parameters of pilot program question to be approved were never defined. Which schools' classrooms were cameras going to be placed for pilot programs? In which schools and classrooms were cameras going to be placed or allowed for program after pilot? What was intent of camera usage? Safety, teacher training, discipline? We were just presented with an idea, not a plan with any kind of
all those things weren't discussed, like if they came up and they said.
Yeah. Usage policy of camera recording, retention policy, distribution policy. I mean, it was just, all of these things can't be just addressed by saying, this is really cool, we should do it.
Yeah. I'm surprised board discussion wasn't on each of those items.
But there was.
There was.
There definitely was. They were still unknowns, is that why people disagree?
See, this is the thing, none of us were a decision-making body. None of us could say, oh, they will retain them for only 30 days, or whatever.
The idea is that if the ad hoc committee was going to make the recommendation, then it would go to the Board of Education for a determination as to whether we would move forward with a pilot, and at that point, we would work through all the process of making all the determination, and we would take into consideration what the ad hoc committee had recommended, or the task force had recommended, to be part of what that pilot would look like. And so we were basically collecting all of that information so that whenever it was presented to the Board of Education, it was determined that a pilot would take place, then we would be working to define all of the pieces. And that the task force did have the opportunity to share, like they broke down each one of the different pieces that she was talking about, to kind of talk about to what extent, to the time frame for keeping the retention of the videos, like the review of the videos, to the extent that it would be utilized. And really there was a lot of conversation specifically about what is the purpose, and does the purpose truly serve what seemed to be the intended purpose, which was a preventative way. And instead, I think where the committee really went was that money could be utilized in order to provide additional training and professional learning for the staff, and as well, work to connect families and to really build relationships with families. And so that was kind of like where I think the committee ended at the end.
So if the parameters weren't set, I'm just trying to put myself there, how do you make a choice whether you approve or don't approve if the parameters aren't there for you to decide if you approve or don't approve?
So we even went through that. So We first started with what was called assumption collecting, because all of us were coming in at different points of understanding what the cameras meant. And so that's how we got to when you see their presentation, we got to 6 main buckets, or was it 5? 5 or 6? 5 main buckets, and then we even helped people understand what does it look like elsewhere, and compare that to the buckets. And then even to your point, some people said, well, I don't know if I could make that decision because I need to know more about that. And so we even gave some hypotheses like, well, if we did this, this is what it means if we did this. And so, but it was not the mission of this task force to come up with the policy, to come up with the regulation, to come up with all of that. And that was told to them. And then, so this is, throughout the time, we always did pulse checks of like, what you're thinking now, what you're thinking now. And unfortunately, the people that were present each time, we just never could reach consensus that it was clear that the district needed to move forward with the pilot.
I will say, we had some families that were part of it that really told their story, which was very powerful. And they told of the struggle that they faced with their children. And so the full task force, for the people who attended, right, they were able to hear the stories of families and real life examples of what their child had gone through, and et cetera. So that was part of a lot of the conversations. And so I really appreciated their willingness to share and to be able to kind of be vulnerable with the full task force so that they could truly understand what a family has experienced, which I think was very powerful.
Anything else on this topic? Joanna?
Where can I find this information?
So the presentation is on October 23rd. So we will be presenting to, well, the 3 of them will be presenting to the board the information from the task force, the results. There's been 2 previous. There was one on August 30th of last year. So you could go back and watch that one. And then there was a second one, I believe, in March of this past spring. So you can kind of get the history of what's been presented to the board and what was the board's direction to the FCPS staff with regard to what should we be bringing back. And so it was the decision of the Board of Education that we would have a task force that would be made up of FCPS staff, community members, and CCAC, of course, would be an important part of that group that would be able to bring a group together to really look at what would a pilot program.
So Board Docs is where the recordings and all of that would be posted, the historical information, and then.
Remember what dates they were presented?
I know it was August 30th, but I feel like it was like March.
August 30th. If you go to,
I can easily go.
Yeah, we can find all the links and send them out to everybody if that would be helpful. I do think having this over the summer could have also impacted some of the participation. I know some of us were.
We said the same thing.
Yeah. So we'll get out the links of the historical information to everyone so that you have that context.
So moving forward, you're basically saying that you're looking to step back and need someone to move forward with another task force for another school year, or
Well, I think this is a point to stop and say, what does the question need to be? Because the question for the ad hoc committee was vague and nebulous, which I actually, it might be annoying in some ways, but I actually think that was fine because we needed to come up with that squishy Jersey wall of opinions, and there wasn't really another way to do it. But now I think a specific question needs to be asked. Do we want to find a way to make this happen? Do we help advocate for legislation? Or do we try to explain to the Board of Ed all of these concerns people had, and this is what you're up against when you have to talk to the unions? You either have to go through the unions, or you have to go through legislation. It's a long road on either one.
Sorry, it sounds like you're trying to understand from CCAC perspective, what are the next steps, if any?
It's kind of like, are we going to move forward in trying to push this issue, because it's a very important issue, especially for the non-speaking community, because those children can't come home and tell you what happened.
Yes, I have one of those.
That is so important, and I'd like to see
What
it
I would
move
like to do is help whoever's going to be on this committee understand the cloud of information that we have, and where it's opinion and nebulous and where it's actual fact.
We're still moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's what CCAC has to decide. I would suggest we get through the presentation that's coming up, and then CCAC needs to decide what role it wants to take as a body as we move forward, once we learn how the Board of Education reacts to the presentation that's happening soon.
Maybe if we could find out who is interested in being on this committee, I can help them through this next month.
We did that as part of the member
okay,
survey.
great.
People could
That's
sign up for
great.
this committee, so we have some of that. But of course, others can speak up or change their minds.
May I ask a yes/no question?
Yes.
Were any representatives from not just teachers or aides or whatever, but were any representatives from the collective bargaining units invited to the task force over the summer to speak to
Yes, I can't remember
their truth in
legal,
terms of
and
their
there was human
regulations?
resources, and I don't remember, did we have a union person there?
Yes, we had, there was the not president, but actually isn't
Like
he?
someone from the board, from the unions, were they involved to be able to speak to what the,
So I just want to give my perspective is that I don't think that that is one factor is the negotiations. There's multiple factors because students with disabilities have rights as well. And that was something that both HR and our legal team had to share about, like, your rights as parents, like what would you would have to agree potentially or have an understanding that cameras would be in the classroom and that recording would happen as well. And so there definitely is the workplace condition, but that is something that could potentially be worked through as one thing. But there was multitude of things that ultimately that was why at the end of the day there's so many things that without legislation basically saying here's the parameters and then the district move forward, this is where, to I think Jen's point, that knowing what would occur was a lot of people just had so many questions that we didn't have answers because of that.
So I have talked to many different districts across the nation that have cameras in the classroom, and they all talked about their legislation and what the legislation required, and then what they did and how they implemented it. And I think that goes back to what Dorothea was saying with regard to where the CCAC want to spend their time. And is it with legislation or is it with CPS? But I'm waiting until after see what the board says.
Yes, and we will aggregate all of the information and we will circulate it so that everybody can have that historical context. And I know that there are people that signed up and expressed interest in that ad hoc committee, so Dorothea can help do any transitional knowledge sharing to get people up to speed as she moved on to focusing on something. We do need to move on though.
Was there any talk about this prior state legislation and whether that has been revised? There was talk about that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There was a member present that actually helped support that.
Yes.
He sat on that with the delegates, and she's willing to talk to CCAG.
And then Jamie, I just wanted to
That's
ask,
true, sorry.
you mentioned the perspective of is the funding better allocated to this concept or something else? So I just want to, and I don't expect it, but was there a preliminary discussion of potential funding?
We had security come in and they talked about the cost of cameras and the upkeep.
Is there a number that's available?
So for instance, it costs $3,000 to install a camera. And then because we already have systems wired at every school, that wouldn't necessarily be. But for instance, if every specialized program had cameras, then you might actually have to have a position you had to pay for to monitor the camera usage depending on the policy that was written.
So I mean, whether it's for the board or for anybody to consider this, do we, ballpark conceptually $1 million, $5 million? I mean, we're just trying to analyze that. Is the preventative goal better spent with proactive resourcing or video analysis? So I'm just wondering if that cost benefit analysis has even been scoped. 20 schools, this kind of matrix.
And it really came out of the task force. Like, that was not something that any of us suggested. I even said that I wanted to kind of stay impartial to be able to listen to what they were saying so that I could lift up the work, right? Like, that's what I felt like my role was, and they were the ones who actually made that suggestion. So it came from the task force members.
Gotcha.
So it sounds like funding is an area that might need a bit more probing, is what I'm taking away from that, yeah. All right, let's move on in our agenda. So bylaws subcommittee, it's not really formed at this point, but we did talk about it last school year as a need, and it is a requirement as part of our bylaws to revisit the bylaws at on a cadence, so we will be getting folks convened. I think myself and Tara and Laura are the only ones that express interest in this. If others are interested, just let us know. I have a lot of experience writing bylaws, revising bylaws, so it's something that I personally enjoy, but that's not everybody's bailiwick. So that's the latest from, in terms of bylaws. We'll be getting together to make sure that we remain compliant with what is required in our bylaws, to revisit our bylaws. And with the lovely grant funding, you all have a physical copy of the bylaws. So we talked a little bit about, for those who came to the member meet and greet, we did share an overview of what is expected. This is our rules of operation, so it helps us understand what we're here to do. And where it's silent, we leverage Robert's Rules of Order to keep our business orderly. But we also are working on creating some standard operating procedures, just trying to codify some of the things that we've been up to, the good practices that lots of folks have put in place, so that when we do have transition, that we aren't having to kind of restart things from scratch. So we're getting some structure and organization around that. All right, Board of Education candidate questionnaire. So as I mentioned, we did update the website to just focus that in on the candidate questionnaires for the Board of Education candidates that made it through the primary. I would encourage all of you, if you haven't been out there to look at their responses, to go and look at their responses. There is a lot of opportunity for us to connect with these folks, whoever makes it on, to help them understand the needs of the special education community. And that is my own personal opinion. I encourage you to make your own, draw your own conclusions, go and take a look for yourselves. And the other interesting thing that came around this topic is we have been asked to partner on hosting a candidate forum, and I've lost my internet connection, so I can't find the information around that, but I do think it would be an excellent opportunity to continue the work of this subcommittee to create a partnership to host a candidate forum. So if you can find, there we go.
From?
Yes, the parent resource.
Therese with the PRC.
Yeah, PRC, so Therese reached out to us. And I would like to make a motion to partner and create and host a candidates forum for the upcoming 2024 Frederick County Board of Education election. And there would be, this would be in partnership with the Parent Resource Center, and there would be an ask to help with promotion, to spread the word, to help orchestrate getting the candidates there, and to then also support the event management. So that is my motion. Is there a second? Merit is the second. Discussion.
I don't know enough about the group. Are they bipartisan? Like, what is their mission?
The Parent Resource Center down here in downtown Frederick.
Same one.
Okay, they're over on East Street. It's Stephanie's office.
Sure, I do.
Stephanie Knapp.
Oh.
Her office, Parent Resource Center.
So Legal and Resource Center. Okay.
It would have to be nonpartisan. The election is not.
Okay.
So I would. I'll address.
I shouldn't have just asked the question. I should have said, can you make sure that they are not pushing any specific candidates?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It would have to be a nonpartisan partnership for sure.
Correction.
Sorry, it came to me who she was.
Ashley Van Cleaves.
Oh, it's Ashley Van Cleaves.
Ashley Van Cleaves. Okay.
I'm getting confused, sorry.
All
Ashley
right,
Van
so
Cleaves,
I'm
PRC.
rephrasing my motion to include that it has to be nonpartisan, that the partnership would be nonpartisan to host this candidate forum. And still second, okay. Any other discussion? Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Dawn is abstaining, so one abstention, and then that leaves 21 in favor. Okay. That is latest from the Board of Education candidate questionnaire ad hoc committee. All right, so the next part of our agenda is unfinished business. I don't believe we had any from the last school year that wasn't already covered or discussed in other sections of our agenda. So I think we can maybe move on to new business. So preparation for recommendations and recommendations to the Board of Education. So that is coming up fast and furious. We do have some inputs from the retreat that we held that we're pulling together. And of course, we've got all of the crosswalk information and the status of all of that. That was also partly my in part my reasoning for reaching out and trying to understand what's happening with the special education work group at the state level, trying to understand what CSAC is up to, and how can all of this information kind of come together to inform things that we might want to put forward, recommendations that we might want to put forward to the Board of Education. I had a couple of conversations around CCAC potentially putting out a quick needs assessment to get a outreach to the broader community through maybe Partners for Success, whatever distribution lists we might have access to, because we have the parent involvement survey, but that data takes 2 years from what I understand to get, and so that's a lagging indicator. I'm looking for leading indicators to help us understand what's happening now, because what we're going in and asking for is going to be, within this next fiscal year. So. That would be something that potentially we could partner with FCPS on in terms of writing that. But I think if we could get another outlet, yes, we have 31 or so members here that are all bringing their respective perspectives, which is important. But I think if we can get even further out into the community and understand what their needs are, maybe structured and phrased a little bit differently than what is in the parent involvement survey, because I personally find myself answering some of those questions and it's not quite what I want to be asked. So I think there's a way to ask a different set of questions that we could then take into our recommendations to the Board of Education. Recommendations that we're going to be making in November. And can Troy maybe help me with the timeline, and David?
The presentation is November 6th.
November 6th.
Your presentation will need to be ready by October 14th.
October 14th, okay, so those are our dates that we're working with. So we have, that is right around the corner, so we have done this clearly.
That's a little earlier than last year, yes?
It's usually November for sure. Sometimes it's the first November, sometimes it's the last one.
It was November 28th last time.
Yeah, I thought we had to have it done by
Which is, they have to look at all the different agenda items.
Okay, so you said November 13th.
Troy, November 8th.
November 6th, it has to be October 14th. So we're
Yeah.
it's online.
Yeah. So we'll probably need to have some ad hoc communications and conversations and meetings to get alignment on what we move forward with, given the time frame and when our next meeting is held. So stay tuned to your inboxes for what's coming there. We will share, we have a draft of ideas going, recommendation ideas going, and that's what we were referencing earlier, where we were pulling all of this historical information together to get ready for this next set of recommendations. So we'll make sure that we share that link and you can add to it, and then we'll go through a process of trying to synthesize all of that and get some alignment on what we move forward with. So it is going to be a compressed time, and I do ask for your patience and participation in that, because this is our opportunity to have our voice heard. And next time around, we'll get on this sooner, clearly. So, Tara.
Is there a way to communicate back that early in November eliminates us from having adequate time to prepare a recommendation with this schedule we're under per how CCAC meets based on the state mandate of how we meet?
Do you want to bump it to December 11th?
I'm just talking about in the future, can we?
I would.
Only
Or can
caution
we
is
move-
about the budget, right? When you go in the spring or you go later and they've made all their decisions,
I mean
then you're
just-
out of the loop.
I mean, just not in the beginning of November, like at the end of November, or because, so that we don't have to.
December would get us in before the January, recommendation though, right, wouldn't it?
Doesn't give the board enough.
And I don't even know if we can move it for this year, I'm just talking about moving forward in the future, because if we can't meet until September to do actual business on this, then having something due by the middle of October, we have this one meeting to do any work as a committee on it, which
And there's no
last year
meeting
I
over
thought
the
we
summer.
had two. And there's no meeting over the summer per the regulations we're under from the state, as I understand, that we only meet starting in September and ending in May. So I don't want to lose the ear of the Board of Ed at the right time of year, but I'm wondering, can we be a later November meeting or the first meeting in December to give our committee more adequate time?
Just need to look to see, we have a KPI presentation that we were gonna be presenting on the 20th, but I can check that schedule and see if we can bump that one.
I don't know if it's, like, I'm not even asking, does it have to be this year, but moving forward. It just seems,
Resource fair is important for recommendations and recommendations.
yeah. It just seems very.
So not necessarily for this year, but that even one meeting later, even the later meeting in November would help?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because of the deadline of when we have to have our presentation in, it eliminates us from having 2 meetings prior. Like, we don't start meeting formally in August. That would give us today to work on, oh, we've brought something forward for everyone to discuss.
I'll work on moving it, and then I'll let you know.
Okay.
I'm just thinking,
That's a good.
I mean, historically, this has been the case where you guys have had to call some other meetings to work on.
Yeah, last year was the 8th, but just the way that the week fell, I think we were able to have that one extra.
yeah, we were able to meet in October
It was.
to look over everything.
It was the same week.
finalize it. I don't know. I know it's always been really a time crunch. Doesn't hurt to ask. So you get the
Thank
best
you.
information.
We'll wait to
from
hear
it.
back from Dr. Bigman on what's possible. Appreciate that. Anything else on this topic? Go ahead, Joanna.
All ideas or all things should be presented and discussed prior to preparation date?
Yeah.
Put it up so that there's a budget for it.
If it's gonna make sense.
Yes, and getting the recommendation to the Board of Education, if there is a budget implication, is really too late. You need to shift that left and get that really to the superintendent, honestly, right?
You also can get it to us, because that helps inform our budget decision.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and and it's all somewhat delayed too. We were talking about like lagging and stuff too. So when we present in November, we're asking to be considered, if it's budget impacting, we're asking them to consider putting it in the budget for 2025-26 school year. Typically, it even gets bumped to the next one, to be fair. So that is why we're trying to get it in it now, because we used to, like years ago, we would present in the spring, which means it would really be a full 2 years before it would get implemented. And so that's why it's bumped and it's a tight time crunch. But however, just keeping that in mind too, whatever we're recommending is being requested for budget for the following school year, not spring.
Yeah. But I think the point
Yeah,
about sharing it with, Troy and Katie and then the superintendent is, those budget decisions before they go to the Board of Education are in a lot of ways already kind of getting baked. So shifting it left might give us a little bit more of an opportunity to influence where the funding goes.
And I will say that Dr. Dyson, I think when she comes next month, is anticipating talking about budget, kind of like the district budget, so you'll be able to hear from her directly in regard to budget.
Okay.
So would it be to the benefit of the student that we have a meeting so that we can put in things and discuss?
Yeah, we can,
I don't want to take from people's time, but I'm thinking if it's that urgent and that much of a priority.
yeah, and Kara, did I hear you say that is what has been happening historically, that there had been?
Yeah, there was definitely an ad hoc meeting last year.
Okay.
And then I believe an extra executive committee meeting either before or after to kind of help combine some of it. And keeping in mind that not everything has to be budget impacting, so some of those recommendations that are not budget impacting, that's where a lot of times these guys can, if it's agreed upon, whatever, other things can fit in prior to that 2-year time frame I was talking about, but yeah, there was an ad hoc meeting last year.
Okay, we'll get something scheduled around that, and then the other, it's important for me that everybody has an opportunity to have their voice heard in that process, and so, there's nothing stopping us from going ahead and just putting our ideas into a document, and then we can call a meeting together, synthesize the ideas, get alignment, and then figure out, based on what we can achieve consensus on, what we want to move forward then with in terms of recommendation to the Board of Ed.
I think you guys, and I missed the retreat last year, but I think that you started sort of a framework. We have somewhat of a framework, I think, that you can kind of share with the whole team and say, this is kind of where we've been heading, these are some of the things, but there should be discussion from everyone on.
Maybe for the new members, sorry, Dr. Beeman, for the new members, we do just a little bit of an overview and a catch-up for anybody that's interested. If you're interested, you can come and we can kind of update you and give you some context. And then we can have a full ad hoc meeting with the committee, and then we can, as the executive board, kind of synthesize all of that, package it, give it back to everybody for final review, and then submit. Does that sound like a fair process?
I would just share that Dr. Dyson does want to have more listening sessions with the community with regard to budget, and so you will find, in the coming weeks, you will find communication that will come out about virtual listening sessions, just to give the community more of an opportunity to log on, to share, and so not like it's just this presentation and that's it. There are other going to be listening opportunities that individual folks can be able to log on, listen, and then share their perspective. So that's new this year.
Do you want to talk about a date now, since everybody is here? Are you looking virtually? You think it's going to be in person?
I would prefer to put out a doodle with some suggested dates that we can then offline find what works best for everybody, if that's okay.
Are you thinking in person?
Well, we could do I have no preference. I think whatever is easiest and gets the most people there. Are we okay with virtual? Is there a preference?
Either way. That's why I was curious, because you get a better turnout if it's virtual.
Yeah, I'm all for virtual. So we'll get a poll out with some potential dates and probably do virtual. So thank you for that question. All right. Any thoughts on trying to do a quick needs assessment just to get it going for maybe the next time around, where we might have a little bit more time?
I think it's helpful to do, even if we can't do it to impact what we do in November, I think it will be helpful in impacting how we move forward this year and what we bring to the public.
I think we had talked about perhaps attending more meetings anyway and speaking as a voice, so even if we don't get it in for our official 2024 recommendations, it doesn't mean we can't, if we collectively agree there's something worth bringing to a February meeting to discuss, we can still do that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay. That's great. So I would like to make a motion then to do our very first needs assessment of the special education community. And if we get results in enough time, use that as an input to the recommendations that we'll form for the Board of Education. And if not, I love Kara's idea. Second? Kara's the second. Any discussion?
How do you form the needs assessment? You're just going to ask, what are you most concerned about? Or are there going to be categories?
Excellent question. Love any ideas around that. I mean, we created categories for the Board of Education candidate survey. I would think we would do a similar kind of like, here are some categories of things that we think might be worthwhile for people to weigh in on, but open to any and all ideas around that.
I would just say sometimes when you open it up to the community, like there have been times where we've read like 400 pages of comments.
I was going to say, is it a click box? Like you could say,
Like I know, like
aggregate your data a little better than, and then leave
Yes,
one.
survey design is a skill, and I'm sure that there are professionals that we can lean on to help us form something that'll get us usable data out of, and would love anybody's help. Insight around that. Okay. Anything else? Any other discussion? Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? So 22 in favor? Okay. So we'll move forward with getting that pulled together in post haste. All right, so now we are going to move into comments from parent members. So this is for those of you who are new, your opportunity to share anything that you'd like, bring your perspective to the committee. Any parent members would like to speak? Joanne?
First of all, thank you for the privilege to be on this committee. I consider it an honor to be able to have a voice in something like this and to give other people a voice in any situation. So I I'm a parent of 3. I have 2 that are autistic and have ADHD. And my first experience in Frederick County Public School, well, like, I don't know everyone's experience with, as a parent, but for me, who doesn't have any background knowledge of this disability, I came in it with, like, kind of like just hit me. So I had no idea, no information about autism and at the time. And so I had a lot of questions, and so did my family. And with that being said, that process from child find to the school, it was, well, other than the emotional part, the knowledge part is what I want to speak about. That portion, because I'm a very thorough person and I like to understand everything, not just reading me like this is this and this is where you go. I want to know why I'm going. How can I help the people around me, and because I have to navigate everyone. So how do I explain to my family? How do I guide everybody? What is everything that my child needs, and who do I speak to? And today I am beyond grateful because I feel like
It's hard.
oh my God, it's like I had no idea there were so many people involved in helping the children. So thank you everybody for what you do, because your role is so important even to the youth. So it's so encouraging to see you do what you do. So did not plan to do that. Right.
Okay, my very first meeting, I was just a ball of I'm getting better. It's hard to talk about. So thank you for sharing and for your vulnerability.
So for that, I just want to say I'm actually very glad I met you guys. Also, before the meeting started, I feel like that would have been very helpful in the process, but I think as they explained, there were some gaps, so there was no knowledge of these resources at the time. And then actually Nathan got into the school right before COVID happened. So then I know nobody's gonna be able to, give me any information at the time. It was harder, I should say. So there was a long gap before our family understood a lot. And for that reason, I didn't know about a lot of the resources, and when I inquired with the teachers and the school, I feel like they also had a bit of a gap that they needed help with that they couldn't give to me even though they wanted to. And I could see it because I have amazing teachers. I'm just grateful for our team, which is like a family. So I can tell like they didn't know about the resources in the community. They didn't even mention them at the time. So for that reason, I really, really would love to see if there was something could be put in place. Like she asked the best question where she asked her, is there a paper or something that I can hand to the parents? Because like if they don't have it, then they can't give it. And it's like anything. If you don't have any knowledge about something, there's nothing you can share to the next person. So for me, I feel like that first initial coming in for the rest of the parents after me, I would wish that there was something, a resource guide or something, just an initial thing. It doesn't have to be a full-blown one. I've done one with the City Hall in Baltimore County, Baltimore City, and for the Hispanic community, we've done many things, and they've developed more thorough ones, but just something basic, if we could start and then maybe grow off of that, and I would be honored to help and assist with that process, but something to provide, of course, in other languages as well, of just a general thing that we can give to parents so that they know who is everybody in this room, and they know who to go to, because I had no idea who all of these people were. I have, my questions are even more now. So that's something that I would love to see for the future, for the next generations and their families, so that they can be successful, because knowing key people
is what's gonna help them succeed. And then I know they
Like
can
you
do it.
have some things that you could potentially work on.
Oh, I already have plans to talk to her.
Any other parents want to share, or community members or students? Go ahead, Kara.
Yeah, so first, thank you for sharing, and also I think what you'll find is that there are 2 of them now, which is amazing, and a lot of that's based on what CPAC recommended, in addition to some other groups too, but we definitely were hitting it home and driving for additional resources. I held that role for a couple of years, and it was just me, and there's like 5,000 families with IEPs, and some had heard about me, some never did, and it cycles through, so just that's some background. Both of my kids are also autistic. So I say all of that, but the one thing that I wanted to bring up and have us either consider for future meetings or even for recommendations is going back to our special transportation training. I was passionate about this, prior, when I first put my 3-year-old on the bus that couldn't speak, that was incredibly scary. Then when I was holding the role that Issa and Rachel have, I heard from parents all the time. And then unfortunately this summer I had an experience with my own son, who is almost 18, who absolutely loves school, loves the bus, and came off the bus this summer with a new bus driver that was not familiar with him, terrified and crying, and it was really traumatic for him. And I was terrified that it was going to be the thing that made him not want to ride the bus again. But after reviewing everything and working with people, and we worked through it, he's fine, by the way. He was not hurt. I think his feelings were hurt. But at the end of the day, what it came down to is a lot of times, I don't know what all of the special transportation buses, and they're not necessarily, transportation I don't think technically falls under you guys, but we've got to do something more. When I was in your role, we had done some trainings where sometimes the bus drivers would come and they talked about how useful it was, and hearing like, oh, that's how I should talk to this child that has autism, or just this child with differences. But I was never able to make that push into getting an official required training. Now I believe you guys have some sort of training. So I guess my question is, one, I want to find out what do we do both in the normal school year and in ESY, because we know there's different bus drivers. And then are there different trainings for what I'd say our general ed bus drivers versus our special education bus drivers? Because at the end of the day, the example I was able to look at with my own son, it could have gone completely different if they had just understood how to talk to him. He's like the happiest, most happy-go-lucky kid most of the time until he wasn't. So the fact that they just couldn't calm him down and he was so upset was really disheartening. And I think a little bit of training would have just went a long way. It was just education. I did watch the tapes, by the way, because the buses all have them. And it was, again, no one was harmed, but it was definitely just handled really poorly. And so again, I don't blame the 2 women that were on the bus, but I do blame how they were trained. And so I want to make sure that we put that on our agenda of figuring out what we can do better.
Noted, thank you. We have 3 minutes left. Was there, anybody like to move to extend?
No, I was going to have parent comment, but you go ahead and
I'd like to make a motion that we extend the meeting by 10 minutes to accommodate the rest of our agenda.
Second, Corby, or anybody? Corby, Dawn, okay.
Just wanted to say.
Any opposed, any abstention? Okay, so we've extended the meeting by 10 minutes. So I think Dawn had a parent comment.
I do, but I think Corby might have had her hand
I was
up.
going to do community, but go ahead.
Okay, so 2 things. One, I am sure that Janelle is one sibling of many that supports special needs siblings in a way that most can't fathom. And there's a saying that if you want to know how to treat a special needs child, watch how their siblings treat them, and that is where you learn that from. So private therapists offer sibling support, all other private agencies, but what, if anything, does Frederick County have to support siblings of special needs students? Because often they will find themselves defending their sibling, being their sibling's voice. And I'm just curious, and in terms of what age ranges, because it looks very different from when a sibling is supporting at an elementary level versus at a high school level, where they may, try to pretend they don't know that sibling, like my daughter does to my other daughter.
Well, for our New Year grant, we put in that we were going to get certified to do SIP shops. So that is something that we are doing.
And we'll work with the directors, obviously everybody, to really plan out what that's going to look like. Definitely for each, age range, like you were saying, that's a really good point. But I think that is a huge part of our community that is kind of underrepresented or really looked at a lot, and we hear it a lot in our support group, is how do we support our other kiddos who don't necessarily get all the attention that they deserve. So, but with the help from, Jen and Katie and Troy and everybody else and you guys, we will hopefully be able to support them in a good SIP shop sort of fashion. But then I also know that the ARC also does their amazing once a month
SIP shop is for elementary through middle. So it's not extended to high school at this time.
But those things fill up fast, so we want to be able to do it on another Saturday or another day that we can kind of collaborate together. Yeah, that's a
One more point. So, as we all know, students that are on the spectrum, if you know one, you only know one person on the spectrum. So what I recently discovered with my own child and through a number of their peers that are also on the spectrum is they'll get a letter about your GPA puts you in, to apply to the National Honor Society, which is great because if it's a student that has been struggling and often doesn't feel like they fit, well, here's this opportunity. But then you get to the application, and schools can vary the applications because each chapter can have their own requirements. And a bulk of that is focused on things that are within the social aspects of life. So for students who social skills, eye contact, joining activities is a challenge, I think that we need to, I'm asking the directors and you, Jennifer, that there needs to be some type of messaging to schools that academic excellence does not have to be just one way. And traditionally it has been, and I get that, but there are so many other ways to show a personal excellence, and I think it would be great if your voices maybe got into the ears of people at the schools and that's just one example, but it's like here's this, but oh no, now you can't have it because you didn't join this club and you weren't this and you didn't do that. Well, I mean, live a day in their shoes. The fact that they're coming to school every day and that they're participating and getting those grades, just, again, the mind shift.
Inclusivity.
So, Corby, you had, I'm sorry, Merritt, did you have a parent comment?
No, I just, piggybacking on what, I can hardly read, Joanna was saying. My daughter, she runs a autism support group here in Frederick. But no one knew about CCAC. No one, and every single one of those gals at this meeting, when their kids go to Frederick County, they had no idea about you guys. None. There's got to be a way, and the way she reached out to them, and they don't even know about the ARC, which is such a shame. But the way my daughter reached out to everybody was, of course, Facebook, on this Frederick Autism Parents thing that everybody is on, and just pounded it and pounded it and pounded it. But you don't see a lot of CCAC there. Like, they don't even know that they can come here and talk and that we exist. And that's such a shame.
We're working on it.
Anything that, just throw it out there on this Facebook site. Everybody and their brother and everybody can make them shareable. And when I went to her last meeting, I made sure everybody knew about everything that's offered to them out here. But it takes a lot of people to get out there and talk to people.
Which group does your daughter run? Which support group?
It was kind of funny. It's held at
PRC.
Thank you.
I think I saw it and I couldn't go. I was trying to go and I couldn't.
My daughter is Alexis Berry. I taught her to be extremely vocal, and she has proved to be one of the most vocal parents I have met so far. And so it's been great, but everybody does need to know more. Get involved more.
Sorry, Drew.
I just wanted to acknowledge and reinforce, Dawn, your comments, and I'm wondering if there's an opportunity not to volunteer any subcommittee, but maybe if the student committee was to consider whether or not we could look at a low-hanging fruit of some type of awards program for the special needs students. You know, I'm thinking of the 4-H and the Great Frederick Fair that we just did, and the model that they have with the projects that kids can donate, and they give freely these second place, third place. The concept in the model is really, even to your point, my child participated in a special needs event, and he, you know, by many metrics didn't deserve any recognition, but they gave them recognition. And even I was surprised at how impactful it was, how proud he was, how it just reinforced his participation. So I think there's a lot of value with maybe setting a different standard, whether it's an FCPS standard for celebration of students who are in the IEP community and their achievements, and not so much, you know, just recognizing everybody's participation, maybe creating some different levels. And I think maybe the student subcommittee might have some great insight into that and whether there could be something.
Sure. So I was just gonna say, actually, I know the president of NHS at Urbana. He's a pretty cool guy.
Of course it's you. Of course it is.
That's awesome. And I'm actually going to meet with the NHS leadership tomorrow after school to discuss Urbana's plans as it relates to NHS for next year. So, Dawn, if there's anything you want me to recommend on behalf of CCAC or yourself or really anybody in the committee, let me know, and we can kind of do like a little test run like we like to do at Urbana. Yeah, I'd love to be a little bit more inclusive for our students with disabilities, because I know National Honor Society historically has not been, and that's something I'd really like to change. So if anybody has any suggestions for me, anything that we'd like to talk about or discuss for tomorrow, please let me know. I know it's a little bit short notice, but.
So we have 3 minutes left. I want to get to Corby, and then I do have a letter that I want to read for public comment. And
go after Corby.
Okay, and then Jen.
I just wanted to share, yes, we do have SIP Shop, and that is available to anybody in the community. It's not limited to individuals who utilize the ARC. It is for elementary through middle school. I can submit the flyers. Everybody has access to that. Also wanted to let everybody know that an upcoming event at the ARC at Market Street is going to be a future planning event. It will be with the ARC of Northern Virginia, who oversees special needs trust and a pool trust system through Virginia, Maryland, and DC. They will be coming to speak, answer questions regarding special needs trust for families. And we will also have Marilyn Abel there, who will also be doing a presentation for families so they understand how to access Marilyn Abel, how I can help assist you when you are receiving public funding and waivered services through the state, help protect funds for individuals, and help have a savings program that is eligible for them to utilize, since they have a limited access to saving funds if you are on Medicaid. So that will be from 5 to 8. It is free for the whole entire community. So we will be sending that flyer out to everyone, but just kind of wanted to give you a heads up.
CCAC has the flyer and has given it to Meg for distribution through all CCAC channels.
October 23rd. I just wanted to share real quickly, my daughter also has a diagnosis of autism. She was on the National Honor Society. This was at Tuscarora. They were very open and welcome, but we did have to step out of our comfort zone to participate in some school activities. Now, I know everyone has different levels of need and comfortability for their school, but you can remember that if it's anything, so is it choir, is it music, is it a language? So there really were, when my daughter was in school, a lot of different opportunities for clubs to expand, but don't limit it to that. Limit it to your whole community. Think about your church, you know, if they help at a nursing home, any place that they're comfortable. I mean, think about all those access points as well. Don't just limit it to that they can't be involved in school clubs, because that may be overwhelming. Try to make sure you're spreading out, looking at everywhere. And if you're looking, make something. If you know a couple other families, create a little group together. Then they can start having this group together, whether it's an anime group or a tractor group, whatever it is, that someone really has a lot of information on. Just remember to spread that out there. And when you're filling out these forms, if there are these line items that don't fit that individual person, you can always write in there, please see page 10. Write something out, write what they're interested in, write what they do at home, write how passionate they are about something, and kind of fill that void. They might not fit this box, but then you're showing the initiative, all the things they do fit. And so that's kind of a way, until processes get changed, to kind of push those things forward. That's just an opinion.
Thank you, Corby. All right, so Jen, over to you.
Okay, super fast. Unified sports are all in all the high schools. Please have your kids play if they're in high school. There's also a community group. We have an opening in the co-chair position. I am someone who came forward. I would like to nominate Tara Capps, and I would like to make a motion to have a special election tonight to make that decision to vote in a co-chair.
Second, everything you just said.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand.
Sorry.
You're in favor of yourself? Okay, I don't see anybody who is not voting, so that's 22.
Under the line.
In favor. So Tara is now your co-chair. We did get a couple of submissions for public comment, and they were focused on RVP. We have one from somebody by the name of Ronnie Andima, who is blind and asked for her public comment to be read this evening. So I'd like to do that if everybody is willing to stay. Okay. So dear CCAC members, imagine being in an environment where every sound is magnified and demands your attention. Every movement, scratch of a pencil or chair are nails on a chalkboard. Imagine that the sensory overload is so intense that even the sound of the toilet flushing becomes so frightening that you refuse to use the restroom. Your anxiety makes your heart and mind race. Your palms sweat and your nerves are so jumpy that by the time you get home, you break down in sobs. Not just from the pain of withholding your urine for 7 hours straight, but from sheer relief and confusion. That is what it was like for my daughter and for the countless other neurodivergent children within our school system. Had my daughter stayed in that traumatizing setting, she would be a different person today. Her potential withered in the traditional classroom, and it is the job of FCPS to ensure an equitable education for those like her. In August, the CDC released data showing the need for safer and more supportive schools. RVP is that for our children. Since May, we have been begging the Board of Education to restore and permanently fund RVP. It has met the needs of our children in ways that in-person cannot. Their grades, test scores, mental health have improved, and they love school. Parent satisfaction survey for RVP is 94%. What other school has a rate that high? The next board meeting's agenda has special education with a focus on mental health. 40% of students in MSRVP have IEPs or 504s. FCPS's status for serving special ed students is at needs intervention. Even the DOJ investigated this county for its horrific handling of special ed students. RVP should be expanded and promoted so that more people know it is an alternative option. The funding is in the money that is supposed to follow the child. No additional funds are required because the money is already there. FCPS will argue that the funding must go to the brick and mortar school, but the AIB and MSDE say this is not true, and Senate Bill 610 allows funds to be reallocated to RVP. It costs roughly $11K to educate a child in RVP, $12K and would cover the cost of RVP. $11K to educate a child in RVP and $16K in person. If the blueprint says 75% of that follows the child, that would be $12,000 and would cover the cost of RVP. It can be done. The board can give RVP a school code and bring it under Frederick Virtual School. Please help us to advocate for permanent funding and shape a positive future for our special needs children. We will make sure that this gets on to the Board of Education along with the other 2 emails that we received on the topic of RVP. Senate Bill 610 also allows for multiple counties to come together to form a virtual school and pool resources. So I talked to David about that. I had conversations with Senator Lewis Young around this. I think that there is a way to solve this if multiple counties can come together around that. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. I'll second that
So
one.
moved, okay. We are adjourned at 8:14.